Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern, and that means it is time for Tuesday Night Live with Chiro Destiny. You got Rick and Brett, as usual, and a great friend, a dear friend, someone that we love, that we can't wait to catch up with. We have so many stories together over the years, on the stage and behind the stage.
Can we say those stories today?
We'll keep it PG.
Right. Anything you want to know, the three of us got it under control.
Right.
And
No holds
all the
barred
way
tonight.
from, as you can see behind Janice's head, one of the most spectacular views we've ever seen. Dr. Janice Hughes, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So for starters, just give our listenership and our viewership a little taste. What Brett and I would say is you're probably like the best nomad in chiropractic history. That every time we talk to you, you live in a different state, a different country. You're up to something different professionally. But the one thing that remains consistent is your desire to continue to grow yourself, learn more, and then make a huge impact. So just tell us what you're doing now.
So business, we were raising, our company basically grew from a 20 million valuation to a $1.5 billion valuation. And now when I say that, remember, it's only as valuable as it eventually will be sold.
Right.
But taking a lot of those principles, like what did it do to build business? What did it do to create that? And my love of chiropractic, I came back and I'd already been being approached by people to help with things like practice valuations, helping them think about positioning, where or how do you get the most value for the asset? Because so many of the practice brokers out there talk about, your practice is worth 50 cents on the dollar, just all those kinds of things that I disagree with philosophically. And, helping chiropractors meld their practice into a business. So I started doing some work with a lot of chiropractors about calling it a 10-year exit strategy. Did they have the checklist? Do they have the things in place to position themselves for complete freedom? So it's been a wonderful ride, a great time to come back and kind of mentor and help guide and train a couple of other women chiropractors who you guys know well also for teaching them how to coach. They're interested in the future in probably coaching. So just doing a lot of those kinds of projects. So that in a nutshell, is just following the vein, following the love of chiropractic, but the love of business, and then working on myself. I mean, when I moved into the biotech world, I knew nothing about it. So it forced me to find mentors and guides and ask for advice and input and just be a student. It was a stage of life where you kind of think you've got a lot of things figured out and you realize you have very little figured out. So it's been a really wonderful way to explore myself along the journey too.
So I'd like to go back a second, because we have this history for many, many years. As you said, we met at the Master Circle. We grew up there. We evolved there and so forth. And everybody kind of went on their way. One of the things I've always admired about you, if I remember correctly, you had a microbiology background, correct? Hopefully she'll come back in a second. But she had a microbiology background, and then she went to chiropractic school. So I want to hear about how she parlayed the left brain to the right brain. And then she became such a big fan of the chiropractic philosophy. And I think it's a kind of an interesting duality that a lot of people don't have. It's either kind of one or the other, but she had both. So hopefully she's come back on. All right, we're just cruising right along tonight.
Yeah, listen, this is what happens in life. You got curveballs.
Hi, I'm back.
She's back. All right. Did you hear anything I said or no?
No, I heard you. You started going into slow motion, and then that was it. So
when I was saying to our audience, one of the things that I admired about you was this duality, that you had a microbiology background, I believe. Then you got into this whole chiropractic philosophy thing. And there's not a lot of people who have the whole left brain, right brain thing, did it very well, this duality. How did you get into the whole chiropractic philosophy? And then I want you to take that on a personal level, but I want you to parlay it into how that chiropractic philosophy understanding and then the ability to communicate it to your own patients when you were in practice years ago, where you were able to build such a successful practice. Because we have so many chiropractors that are listening live and then who will watch this on the go back. I want them to understand how important that piece is to being successful? Obviously, working on yourself speaks for itself. We'll do more of that as well. But the key was also this other piece I want you to talk about a little bit, if you could.
Well, science and philosophy are actually the same thing.
Right.
It's just two different ways of following a vein, so philosophy brings the trust, but it's trust that there are universal principles, that there's, again, these laws of the universe, whereas science is you're just studying them. And so the deeper you go in science, you understand that didactic thinking. And so for me, I was supposed to be going that medical school route and did the 180 into chiropractic. So a lot of it was that the science person in me, I'm a great questioner. I just ask a lot of questions. I drove probably the profs in chiropractic school crazy, because I'd be like, well, where's the study, or where's the information? And they couldn't tell me. So I went out and found it myself. It's interesting. I went to school before Jim Chestnut. So I'm laughing that school was probably as happy to get rid of me as they were. And then they had him come in, but he's obviously really put that into like some of like teaching the science part of it. I think I morphed the more I looked at the science, and I just went to other parts of the science world, not chiropractic. And it was saying the exact same thing that we do. And then, in practice, it's kind of funny because I think I was acceptable to a lot of the medical field because I'd come from that side. So I had orthopedic surgeons sending me really, really complicated cases, critical things. And the only way, like, it's almost like I had to practice the philosophy of saying, I don't know the results that you're going to get, but what I do know is that with a properly functioning nervous system, you're going to have more chance to make change. So it's like it forced me into talking philosophy. And then I just decided, again, as a questioner, and that's the thing I'm going to encourage anybody listening. Like, I think we get really stale. I think clinically we get stale. We start to say, well, yeah, but I see the same kinds of cases, because I think that's kind of what we're expecting. And could you learn a new technique? Could you study something different? So every time I studied something more deeply, it's like it helped me get simpler. So it's so funny because as a really philosophical chiropractor, like, if anything, I probably communicated with my patients so dumbed down compared to what most of your listeners are describing.
Right.
It's brain, nervous system. This runs everything. What do you think happens if it's not working? It's almost like learning to communicate at a 5th grade level, and asking patients questions. And then patients just start getting it and they start referring other people. So, it's because of the science, and then having studied the science, that I think I took that same approach to chiropractic. And I see, when I talk to a lot of chiropractors, I see them very set in their way and very stale, and not continuing to grow or expand and make changes. So I don't mean you've got to change everything, but what are you investigating? Like, one of the things, based on coming back to the profession, I started doing some consulting down at Life University, and was helping with their functional neurology clinics and trying to morph. They're so smart with the work they do, but helping them build it more into a business model. Well, then now the last year, I've been consulting for a group within the functional neurology realm in the profession of functional neurology, which is all philosophy. So science and philosophy, they're not, I don't know if it is a duality. I think the deeper you go into it, the more you realize it's all the same.
Interesting. So now let's say you have chiropractors who are struggling a bit, and you've been in the coaching world like we have for many years. If chiropractors who are struggling a little bit, now you have the pandemic, and now you've had some people say, well, there's no evidence that chiropractic can boost, immunity and all these different things. It was crazy for a while. What would you suggest or recommend to the chiropractor who might be struggling a little bit, even though we also know a lot of people breaking records? Because I think now is the time people are looking for this. But how could we help them in terms of communicating the message at a level that the public is now ready to hear?
I think that the question I'm going to ask people to think about is, what do you have to lose? Like, you have nothing. So people have been shut down. Like, depends on the state you were in. Some states were actually physically shut. You know, up in Canada, again, they couldn't practice. You know, Colorado was really completely shut down for some weeks. Kentucky was looking like it was going to be shut down for eons. And that's changed, fortunately. But I guess it's time to get brave. Like, what do you have to lose? And I don't mean that we need to be on a soapbox. For me, this is not the time to battle all about immunity, immune system. Like, chiropractors have the opportunity to be the public health resource, the public health voice within their community. You just have to get brave enough. So if you've been talking complicated stuff with patients, kind of get rid of it and say, what do I really do here? What do you think an adjustment really does? And if you can start to get brave and get that simple, like again, your patients are telling you this, like, well, wow, I thought I came in for headaches. I thought I came in for this. And now not only do I not have any headaches, but I don't have digestive problems. Well, make the link for them. That's nervous system. That's properly functioning nervous system. So I think, like, it's time, like, what do you have to lose? We just went through, like, the biggest pandemic of all of our era, even Larry's era. Like, I don't know that Larry was coaching people through the pandemic, you know? And so some of it is just, like, again, saying, stop running the complicated story, or I'm supposed to be so smart and I'm supposed to know all these things. It's help the patient understand. And, you know, for me, I've been saying a lot that the best defense to not have COVID is a powerful offense, which is what you eat, what you think, what you're doing to your body. Are you well adjusted? I mean, we could go through the top 5 health things that we've all done in healthcare classes for how many years, you know, but are you talking about that and teaching that in the practice and in your community as well? I see a lot of chiropractors getting really warped out and posting everything about their masks. And I disagree with it all. It is such a philosophical rub for me, but I would rather be telling people why an adjustment is powerful right now. I don't want to fight about the mask because I don't get to make those rules, but I do get to make the rules of standing on my soapbox and talking about, here's what's going to help you, whether you have COVID, someone in your family did. I mean, I've had a family member, you know, again, with COVID and well adjusted. Like, here are the principles that it takes to defensively deal with, even if you were going to get it. So I just think chiropractors have to get brave right now. What do you have to lose?
So I want to go in a little bit of a different direction, because the last time the 3 of us worked together was sitting in a boardroom and helping to basically redo some of the curriculum of a chiropractic college with the capstone program. And, you know, you've had the opportunity to work with chiropractors, like you said, the people that are looking for their exit strategy, and tons of students. And the same that, you know, the 3 of us are coaching chiros in all those different levels. You have a chiro kid coming out of school, what we call kids now, because of, you know, how long we've been out. And you see what some of the different schools are sort of getting them ready for, and their arsenal of ability to communicate, ability to deliver the goods. What do you say to the students? What do you say to the young chiropractors just out in terms of the transition of what school gets you ready for, and then what the reality of practice is?
It's the same thing we were just talking about, that they're so smart, or they've been taught to communicate, but they've been taught to communicate in a much more convoluted, complicated way.
You know, some of our experiences, they're not taught to communicate at all. And, you know, from a personality standpoint, like you said, they're really not given a lot of the tools to put themselves out there to survive and excel in a time like this. You know, have you come across
it's
a lot
kind
of
of the exact same? Yeah, it's exact same thing. Like, you know, chiropractors, and as a profession, prove how smart and how validated and on an equal par with any other health professions. And so then what starts to happen is now our schools are even still teaching for them to pass boards. And yeah, we put a lot of modifications, or we try some different things, but you're exactly right. Like a lot of them still don't know their personalities, still don't know how to communicate effectively so that more people hear them and understand them. You know, so it's really profession wide. So it's the same thing. Like, could we even through the pandemic, you know, hopefully have our schools get braver with some of the things that they could add into the curriculum, some additional things, or some new requirements. Like, I hate to say it, and I know students or young docs listening will go, yeah, but my requirements were so heavy, or I had to do so many adjustments. No, you didn't. You know, like literally you had to do a lot of class hours and you had to do all those things. But I think it's still pretty minimal what we are doing from that hands-on or the clinical experience side of things that these students go through. Like, I love when they do precepts. Now, some schools call it an internship, some call it precepts, some call it postcepts, but I love those because to me, you know, that's where they're seeing real stuff. They're going into hopefully really good clinics and getting great experience. Or any young doc listening to this, like, go get experience. When I hired the associate that eventually bought my practice, I would not let her adjust any of my patients because I said, you get one chance and they'll all remember that experience. So we laughed about it, but I built a curriculum where I sent her to do coverage for another chiropractor. And my husband, you guys know Dave is a chiropractor, and I sent her to Dave's practice to adjust Dave's patients.
I'm sure he was really happy about that.
He was thrilled. He was really thrilled with that. But and it's not that, oh, she couldn't adjust, but if she was going to be fully integrated into my practice, like, she needed more experience because they don't come out with enough experience. I didn't, except that, like, for some of us, we just got our hands on a lot of people really, really quickly. Yeah. And right when I graduated, I did coverage for a really strong chiropractor that had broken his wrist. And I went in for 6 weeks and covered his practice. And that was the best training that I ever got. So you're right. Like, you know, it's kind of the same issue though. Like, I know you're asking about that end of the profession, and I still see it across the board. Like, a lot of people, they don't know how to put a care plan together that includes a great reevaluation. And some of your docs will say, yeah, but Janice, I don't get paid for a reeval. But you're not doing it for that. You're doing it so you're educating the patient, the progress that they've just made, and then where you're going to take them next. So honestly, you're doing the reeval.
Did it properly, they could get paid for a reeval.
So, you know, it's all.
But so, you know, Janice, when we coach our members and when we talk about profession wide, you know, Rick and I talk about what we call the 4 pillars of chiropractic success. So we have the headspace, chiropractic philosophy, the systems and procedures, and then marketing. And really anything is going to fall under one of those categories. And we want to find out, you know, where they are in each category, meet them where they are first. And inevitably or invariably, we always find that as the chiropractor, the younger chiropractors, it's typically the headspace. They don't get it. They don't know they even need it. This whole success philosophy thinking part. They just want to jump in, and then the cry of the profession is, help me get more new patients, help me this, help me that. But I think we all know that it has to start with how to start to think successfully. That doesn't mean you don't have to have the right philosophy and be able to communicate it properly. That doesn't mean you don't have the right systems and procedures, because you need that in the marketing, but it's about also building relationships with people and your just ability to communicate effectively overall. What would you say to the profession? You have the ear of the profession. How important it is for this whole, you know, success philosophy, working on yourself, personal growth, the headspace, because to me, that is really what defines it. Larry Markson talks about it all the time for years. It's all in your head. You've talked about it from stage. We talk about it all the time as well. And I'm sure you do that in your own coaching. How can we get this message to the younger chiropractors in our profession, but even to the people who are just kind of stuck? Because it's got to start somewhere. We really want to help as many people as possible. So what are some advice or recommendations you would make from your perspective, having done this for so many years?
About the, the mindset, and how do you help someone understand that's so pivotal. And Larry's talked about it for years. Like, well, what you're thinking about up here is what manifests. It is all in your head. So you can be an amazing adjuster and you can so focus on that technique, but when you don't have the space about success and understand the principles, like the pitch that you're talking about, you think it's all about technique and you keep growing there, you keep doing that because it feels so easy to keep growing in the area you're already really good. And so all I say to a lot of the students, fabulous, you've done all this great technique, nobody's searching you out for your technique.
Right.
They don't search through, their phone, they don't Google who's the best upper cervical adjuster, who's the best, low back adjuster, and so that's not why they're searching you out. Likewise, marketing is a really great pillar you're talking about, but you can do all this great marketing, and if you can't deliver on the goods when they come in, then they're just slipping through the cracks. So of your pillars, the one I always say, where are you going to get the most bang for your buck? And you're going to get the most bang for your buck by working on your head. And it has the most potential impact. Like, it's like with an adjustment, how can you find the majors, not the minors? Because you adjust, or you put that little impulse. Like, I remember the first time I had Sigafus adjust me, and I'd actually been at one of their programs and I had a fall and I gashed my eye open. And before I was going to be going to the hospital, Sigafus is like, let me adjust you. That's just who he is. I think when I thought about the big icons, or when we used to see BJ and the force through his adjustment, was the most specific adjustment I've ever had in my life. So he knew how to do the little thing that got the most impact. And out of your pillars, the mindset is the place you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. Change your thinking, change your approach. I had an amazing chiropractor call me up today that I did her practice valuation. She already had the buyer, and so she chose to undersell, under offer based on her kindness. And this person has given her the complete runaround. And she called today and said, okay, I'm done. It's like what you said in the beginning. I needed to picture the qualities of the buyer, the price of the buyer. Instead, I got caught up with, I had a buyer in-house that was going to be really easy. And so we're all doing that. We're going for the easy pillars. And I don't mean to say that lightly. Every one of them takes work. Everything takes work.
Right.
An amazing adjuster, again, a fabulous marketer, or having a great marketing team. But where are you going to get the most impact? And I know in my own life, I know over all the years, all the people I've coached, you guys have coached. Remember, we come from the era of like thousands of people at seminars.
Right.
And what got them the most results was a little bit of a shift in their mindset.
That's right, because Rick and I will both tell you, and you know as well, that a lot of chiropractors have a lot of fears or things that are holding them back. They may not admit it. It may be subconscious even, but once they start to kind of dig into that a little bit more, and they start to be able to break through those things, that's when the floodgates open. Right? Yes. We're not saying don't be a great adjuster, don't be a great clinician, don't be, as you said, don't be a great marketer or your team, right? Don't have great systems and procedures. But this has to be really, really strong and sharp. And that's what we work a lot on, because we know, as you said, that has the biggest bang for your buck. So it's amazing to me, but a lot of the chiropractors that are young, coming out of school, never even heard of it, don't understand it, don't comprehend it, don't think they need it. And I couldn't disagree more. And they get caught up in that whole evidence-based approach. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. The more evidence and research and all that stuff to substantiate what we do is great and terrific. We definitely need more of it. But to be truly successful, and what I mean by success is not just a great practice, however the size you want, how much income, blah, 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 but a great family life, a great significant other and children and relationships, and just having it all, because that's what we want people to have. I think that is just vitally important.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just the young docs. You know,
Yes,
I
you're right.
spoke last week to a chiropractor, 15 years in practice,
Yep.
and she said, "What do you mean I could actually like what I
They don't
do?"
even know they don't think they could even deserve it. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And so it, you know, so many facets of it are mindset. You know,
Yes.
and I think a lot of it comes down to, you know, you either don't know, you've either never been experienced, you know, experienced it in your own life, or watched or asked questions. You know, like some young chiropractors, you know, maybe they just haven't been around success principles. But you watch any successful business person and you start to see the discipline, you know, that whole discipline determines your destiny.
Right.
And, you know, if you haven't seen it in action, I think you can convince yourself that it's about technique or it's about something other than mindset.
Mhm.
But it doesn't matter what book you pick up, you'll start to notice that it's
They all
mindset.
say the same thing, just repackaged.
Everybody
In a good
packages
way.
it in their own unique spin and way, but at the end of it, it's because, again, it's like that Sisyphus adjustment. Like, he just knew how to give a little that got a big impact in an adjustment. And that's really, for me, the magic of the mindset piece, is that you have the opportunity to start to channel it, to picture what you want. Years ago, and I might have told you this, where um, even before to practice, I'd heard about Tony Robbins. I was starting to study Tony Robbins a little bit. And at the very beginning of my practice, I went to a Tony Robbins event. And, you know, in the old days, on paper, and still a lot of success principles are inked, like put
Yep.
it on paper. But we literally were doing those exercises of writing out, you know, your 2-year goals, your 5-year goals, your 10-year goals. And, you know, and you come away with all this great stuff, and then you put it on a shelf. And how I know that I was pulling it out 2 years later is because of when I took the seminar and when I was moving my house. I pulled it off the shelf and I went, oh, I'm going to have a look at this. And out of what I'd written, I had every one of my 2-year goals, 5-year goals, and I had 70% of my 10-year goals already all accomplished.
Wow.
But because I'm such a questioner, instead of going, oh, well, I've got it made, I said, wow, imagine what could have happened if I'd even looked at it. Imagine what could have happened if I'd been reviewing it. Imagine what could have happened if I'd been working even more on my mindset. You know, so I think some of it is, you know, that going back to what I started talking about, like, are you a questioner? Are you growing? And the easiest place to grow actually is your mindset.
Right. Exactly right.
So not only does it give you the most impact, but it's also the easiest place to put some energy.
Well, the reason why, when we were talking about who we wanted to interview on these Tuesday Night Lives, specifically for me, the reason that you came up very early on was for an example, a living, breathing example of fearlessness to me. And what I mean by that is, you were in practice, like Brett and I still are, like so many others still are. And there you are, rocking out, you're crushing it, you have a huge practice, financially fine, husband, kids, living the dream. And then you leave that to sell that, to then work in the consulting world, and that lasts X amount of time, and you're traveling, you're seminaring, and you're teaching, and you're coaching, and then you leave that, and then you move again to a totally different area, and now you're working with academia, and you're working in school, and you're working with students and learning the academic world. And then that didn't really work out exactly as planned, so you went to a different institution, and that you did for a little while, and then you went to the corporate world, and you started to learn corporate finance, and now you keep fearlessly just letting the universe happen to you, and design it in such a way that success is always attainable, that you never question. At some point, you just set goals and see what happens. And if it doesn't work, and here's why I always loved you and looked up to you so much, is if it doesn't work, you just say, okay, what's next?
Yeah, what
You
am I
don't beat
learning?
yourself up. You don't freak out. You don't say, what am I just moved my kids. I just moved my husband. My husband just started to practice. My kids are in school. You always just trusted. Where did that come from? That strength, where did that come from?
Well, I guess part of it is that it's really false to say that I never question myself, because I do, just like everyone else. I think the difference, the distinction for me is, like, I even call it, if I'm going to have my pity party, I'm going to just time it. I'm going to time it for a short defined period of time. And then I'm going to get my ass in gear and say, what am I going to do about it?
What's next? Right?
So a bit of that we could say is personality dependent, but I think it's really based on, again, this being a lifetime learner. Like even when I went away to university, I said I was going off in the pursuit of knowledge. And I don't think university trains you for anything. You know, I think it's great for academia and to learn things, but I've kind of taken that approach all along, that everything is leading to something else. And can I question it or allow it to unravel? And I think the trust comes from that I trust myself. So I'll have my pity party, and or something is sure not working out the way I thought it was going to. But I didn't leave a lot of these things because it wasn't working out. If anything, it's like I said earlier, if I start to get stagnant, you know, for me, it's like, I don't know. I think where vitality comes from, like life is a vibration. And where that aliveness comes from is trying new and different things. Like let's face it, like Rick, the stuff in your personal life just sucked. And there is no fancy way to alter that, change that. And the depth of what you go through completely changes you forever. But you can't say, oh, I'm not going to move on. Like that's not honoring the person that you spent such a big part of your life with, and your kid's mom. And, you know, so that's a very personal example that, like, you just have to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and get living.
But it seems like so many others are like knocked over by a feather.
Yeah.
You know, there's got to be some sort of fortitude to be able to have the inner strength and the coping mechanism to, you know, you could wallow and you can, you know, sit there for a second and, you know, you can get hit, stay down for a second, but you can't stay down.
But I think that's because we're coachable. I think that's because we're asking questions, and we've been groomed and taught that all of our lives. And has taught you that, sometimes I'm sure in examples that you hated, you know, but that's just what you were groomed. Like many of us, whether it was parents, mentors, coaches, guides, you know, I laugh about it. Certain sports coaches I had that like ripped a strip off of me. And now I would never at this stage of my life allow someone to say that to me, you know, but also what did that teach you? You know, so everywhere along the way, I think sometimes it's the coddling, or that, oh, well, everything's okay, or like stepping in. And I have to watch this with my own kids. Like if we're not careful, we enable them. Like I've made some things really easy for them. And so again, part of it is like, have I done them like a service, or have I hindered the process, you know, because they've never had to figure certain things out. And yet I say that, like our oldest, he's really, because of his personality, like he's learned from the school of hard knocks, and he is an amazing human being. He is like just a wonderful free spirit, but he's had more, I'm going to say, setbacks or some travesties, you know, than again, some people have in their whole life. And so he's learned that fortitude. So I think, if anything, I guess my message, if you're not being coached, get a coach. Like be around people that think this way or have that vital energy. And you know, for me, I can't envision life without it. And so again, I don't ever want, Rick, for you to think either that was always really easy, or that there was never any pain behind.
No, I know life is life. I know it's not easy, but you still kept your feet moving forward. Even if you didn't know and have everything detailed and buttoned up and wrapped up, you were willing to take the journey. You were willing to say that there's obviously more out there for me. The universe is telling me, listen, one of my favorite albums of yours was the Law of Attraction album, was, you know, some of your best work that I had heard at such a pivotal time in my career, you know, of my practice growth. And you seem to not just teach it, but you seem to live it. and had an opportunity to really experiencing it. So the people not only listening to you, but also observing you. Like we say, sometimes you can't listen to people's words, you just watch their behavior and it says everything. So, I learned more from your behavior of watching you reinvent yourself so many times because of that love of constant learning and knowing that there's just more out there. There's more experience out there for you to suck in. It's just amazing to watch.
Yeah, I think that, if anything, the older I get, the more I trust myself, and then I get to feel like I'm a kid again. Because you look at the fearlessness of our kids as they go to do something. And it's just, I guess, trusting myself enough. I know I can get stuff done. Values based, I'm a hard worker. I get it. I can learn quickly. But I'm saying these things because every person listening to, everyone in your coaching group, everybody you guys impact, we're all the same. We all have those capabilities. So it's just, can you tap into them? And I learned it from Sid Williams years ago. Like when you first, in the old days, when you went to DE, like you got ingrained, like you had to spend your first night and the next day with Sid. You didn't even get out of the room. He didn't let you pee. And what hit the whole essence of everything he went through was change something. Change the way you drive to the office, change what you wear to the office, make some pivot shift, and watch what starts to happen, because it wakes you up. It wakes your nervous system up. What do we do? Why do we see such great change in our patients? Because we wake them up. Their nervous system comes alive. So for us, for anyone listening, you don't have to change places you live. Again, I've had a gypsy year, and some really interesting things coming out of it, everything that I thought, I could pre-plan. It's proved that I couldn't, but literally that waking up again is really quite spectacular. So I'm not saying you have to change country, change all those things to that degree, but change something. Could you go in tomorrow? Could you drive a different way to the office? A great coach gave me the exercise, because I'm a driver and I do everything at warp speed, to drive the speed limit. I put on cruise control and I saw things, and I committed to do it for 2 weeks. And I saw things on my drive to the office that I never knew existed before. And then I went right back to driving the speed
Right,
that I
because
typically drive.
when you're a true driver, you don't care what you see.
Exactly. It's just that, again, it was that shift, and woke me up, and then had me say, what else am I missing? So if I can leave your watchers with anything, there's 2 questions I ask myself constantly. What would and what would I love less of? And I approach it from both ways, because if there's something I'd love less of, then I have to get busy figuring out how I get something different. What would I love more of? As I find those things, how do I bring that more regularly into my life? So those 2 questions I just keep asking myself all the time.
So as we come to the close, and just in the interest of time, I just want to key on one key concept. You talked about vibration before. So how would you, or what recommendations, or what would you say to the individual chiropractor at a B level to increase their vibration and thereby increasing the vibration of our profession?
Be adjusted, be well adjusted, get adjusted more than you probably have been getting adjusted. Get adjusted by a different technique, because that nervous system vibration is very powerful. Drink lots of water. Again, we're 98% water, as a body, allow that, sort of the nervous system, the body, to take on new vibration, and then think differently. It's really that mindset piece. Just think differently, think something differently. And if you do that combination, that just completely alters who you are.
You said before, you got to be coachable. You have to raise your level of self-awareness, and you have to be able to ask the tough questions and kind of explore who you really are. What holds you back? Like you said, what do I want more of? What do I want less of? What am I willing to change? What will I change going forward? What do I have to lose by saying this or doing this, whatever it is? So I thought those were key points in tonight's talk. So today's all about the change up.
Right. And then it's you knowing that inherent in your personality is to be action oriented.
Yeah. Yep. But we can all train ourselves to do that. Like, how can you learn and grow? Like, I started auditing some college level courses as two of my sons were in college, auditing some sociology courses. I signed up and I took a whole sociology about, health and healthcare and
I'm a sociology major in college, right?
I literally, I am so digging it. Like I started auditing race, class, and crime. Like my husband Dave thinks I'm probably going to go back to law school, because I love it. Like, but it's because I love the learning. And now, is it work? Yeah. But you know what? It's work that's allowing my vibration to be higher. So I think it's sometimes just for people to believe in themselves, trust themselves enough. And, then people say, well, I don't have time. Well, what are you doing with your time? Like how many people just sat and watched Netflix during the pandemic, and I'm not saying I never watched any, but wow, I took 4 college courses. And, so literally like that reading and the stuff that I was doing, like, I would rather learn that. So that's where the action comes in. It's just, you're already using your time. Could you just morph it and pivot it a little bit?
Real quick, and before we close, I just wanted to hear a little bit. You have a book launch coming up, I believe, correct?
Yes. It's not. Yeah, it's a project. It's a book project. It's Codes of Longevity. And it's interesting. There's several chiropractors that are involved with it. And I've been fortunate to be part of the project because I'm talking about the financial aspect, so everything is about blue zones, and living to be 100 plus. And this is where Eric Plasker's, 100-year lifestyle fits in so well. For me, it's again, like, do you have the finances? Do you have the ability? It's one thing to say you can physically live to 110 or 120. What would the quality and caliber be of that? So yes, so I get to be part of that, and they have a summit. Melissa Grill Peterson is putting the summit on, so I get to do a talk for the summit and things like that. So yeah, that's just another project.
Awesome. And funny you should say that, because October 2nd and 3rd is our next seminar that we're doing virtually, and it's called Synchronicity. But part of what we're going to be teaching also is exactly that: chiropractors to set themselves financially for the rest of their life so they can live the quality of life they want to live exactly how they want to live it. And I think the financial piece for chiropractors from the business side is so important and so misunderstood. And as you know, a lot of it is behavioral patterns when it comes to money. So we're going to be teaching those behavioral patterns and getting them to understand how they can actually set themselves up for the rest of their life, just as you mentioned. I think that's a key point. So if anybody's interested, you can go on our chirodestiny.com website. You can see more about our upcoming virtual seminar, October 2nd and 3rd. But I thought I just want to let them know as well.
Well, I mean, look, we could sit here and do this all night and just tell our, forget everyone else and just tell our stories, have some laughs.
Tell the stories.
Another time.
It might just be the 3 of us left, but we'll tell.
Right, that'd be fine. Most importantly, the fact that the 3 of us are a kindred spirit, because it's still about making an impact, and it's still about reaching back and helping as many docs as we can to build their practices, to build their lives, to get them to see that there's no special sauce. It's you clear here and you put some action steps to it, and you maintain some consistency, and you get some self-awareness to know who you are, why, and sociologically, why do you make the decisions that you make, and that change is possible. It's not always easy, but change is possible. And once you're willing to make some of those uncomfortable steps, there's a whole world out there that's very tangible, that's very achievable. And I know the three of us will continue to be on stages or on screens or whatever it takes to do that. And obviously we love you and we miss you, and we can't wait to share a stage with you again. And we're coming to visit you to drink wine with you.
Yeah, that would be fun. Let's hope that we get back to seminar world, and let's do it. Let's do something. That would be very fun.
I love it. We love you. Send our love to the family. We'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
We love you. Thanks so much, Janice.
Thanks, Janice.
Bye now.
Bye, everybody.